to a problem of the slithering variety. Giant pythons invading the Florida Everglades at a dangerous pace.
Listen, do you hear that? Nothing. Absolute silence. That's the sound of the Florida Everglades today. One of America's most biodiverse ecosystems, now a graveyard. In just 3 decades, 99% of the mammals have vanished from vast sections of this wilderness. Not from disease, not from climate change, but from a predator so efficient, so perfectly adapted, that our best technology can't find it. Our best hunters can't catch it, and some scientists now believe it's getting smarter. It started with a storm in 1992. What happened next turned paradise into a killing field. And while the world's been focused on hunting 20-foot monsters in the swamps, something far more dangerous has been spreading. Something microscopic that ensures even if we win the war, we've already lost. This is the story of how a $10 pet destroyed a $31 billion ecosystem, and the desperate, controversial gamble Florida is making that has the entire world watching in disbelief. The birth of an invasion. Long before the chaos, the Florida Everglades were a beautiful and vital ecosystem. It was not just a swamp, but a large, slow-moving river of grass that covered over 1.5 million acres of untouched nature. This ancient system was a subtropical paradise full of life that most people could hardly imagine. The Everglades were crucial to the region, providing an estimated $31.5 billion in annual value. This value went beyond just tourism or pretty pictures. The ecosystem offered flood protection to millions of people and supplied clean drinking water to all of South Florida. It was the foundation of life in the area. Life in the Everglades thrived in a delicate balance that had existed for thousands of years. Large groups of wading birds, such as herons, egrets, and ibis, filled the sky, appearing like moving clouds. Their calls echoed for miles. Animals like raccoons, opossums, and marsh rabbits moved through the sawgrass. Bobcats and native foxes hunted around the tree islands known as hammocks, maintaining their territories. This was one of the last truly wild places in the United States, where nature still ruled. No one, not even the experts who studied it, thought it could change so rapidly and completely. The trouble didn't start suddenly. It began quietly. It started with a storm. In August 1992, Hurricane Andrew, a powerful Category 5 storm, struck southern Florida. Winds reached over 165 miles per hour, turning everyday objects into dangerous missiles. The hurricane destroyed entire neighborhoods, leaving a path of destruction. Amid the chaos of wind, rain, and collapsed buildings, something else happened that went unnoticed for years. A reptile breeding facility near Miami was damaged, and when the winds finally died down, many Burmese pythons had escaped into the wetlands. Burmese pythons are not native to Florida. They come from Southeast Asia. But the storm was not the only issue. At the same time, a slower disaster was brewing. In the 1980s and 90s, Burmese pythons became popular as exotic pets. You could find them at pet stores or reptile shows for as little as $10. People bought them, thinking they were cool and easy to manage. They believed these small snakes would stay small. However, no one told the new pet owners that these snakes grow quickly. A snake that fits in your hand can become a 10-foot, 50-pound creature in just a few years. Some Burmese pythons can even grow over 20 feet long and weigh more than 200 pounds, enough to take down a full-grown deer. Pet owners, now overwhelmed with giant snakes they couldn't handle or afford to feed, did the only thing they could think of. They drove to the edge of the Everglades, opened their car trunks, and let the snakes go. They thought they were being humane by releasing them. However, they were actually causing an ecological disaster. This is the familiar story everyone knows. But some researchers have a different theory. They wonder if the story of pet owners is just a simple explanation. What if Hurricane Andrew also unleashed a hidden breeding operation that released thousands of snakes at once? Some researchers believe the rapid growth of the python population doesn't match the few pet releases over the years. The explosion of the snake population happened too quickly and evenly. This mystery remains unsolved, and the truth may be lost forever in the chaos of that storm. The perfect predator. For years after Hurricane Andrew, few people noticed the Burmese pythons in Florida. Some reported sightings, but most viewed them as oddities rather than a threat. However, under the surface, something alarming was happening. The pythons weren't just surviving, they were thriving. The Florida Everglades became a perfect home for these snakes. The heat, humidity, shallow waters, and dense vegetation served them well. Most importantly, there was an ample supply of native animals for them to eat. These prey species had no natural defenses against such predators, as they had never encountered Burmese pythons before. Burmese pythons are highly effective hunters. They can blend into their surroundings, making them hard to see. They can also hold their breath underwater for over 30 minutes, waiting perfectly still for their prey. Additionally, they have specialized thermal sensing pits along their jaws that allow them to detect the body heat of warm-blooded animals in total darkness. This means that a raccoon foraging at night has no chance. The python can sense its heat, track its movements, and strike quickly, squeezing until the prey suffocates, all without making a sound. The breeding capability of these snakes is another issue. A female Burmese python can lay up to 100 eggs at a time. In their Southeast Asian home environment, their numbers are controlled by predators and competition. But in Florida, there are no large predators to keep them in check. This allowed their population to grow rapidly, surprising even the most cautious scientists. Today, experts estimate that there are between 100,000 and 300,000 pythons in South Florida. This creates a massive number of predators, breeding freely and consuming wildlife at alarming rates. The once vibrant Everglades are now growing quieter. A 2012 study revealed shocking statistics. In the hardest-hit areas of Everglades National Park, raccoon populations dropped by 99.3%, opossums by 98.9%, and bobcats by 87.5%. This is not just a simple decline. These populations are almost gone from areas where they thrived for thousands of years. Many people don't understand the real effects of this change. Biologists, wildlife officers, and hunters who have worked in the Everglades for years have noticed the silence. They remember when it was common to see raccoons crossing roads or turtles basking in the sun. Now, they can drive for miles without seeing any wildlife. The small mammals that formed the basis of the Everglades food web have been primarily eaten by an invader that should not be there. The pythons found a perfect environment for themselves, and they are consuming it entirely. The balance that once sustained the Everglades for centuries has not only been disrupted, it is completely broken. As state and federal officials recognized the seriousness of the situation, they realized they were battling an unseen enemy. The swamp grew silent, and it became clear that the pythons were not alone. The unwinnable war. The Everglades in Florida faces a problem with many Burmese pythons. In 2013, officials started the Florida Python Challenge, encouraging people to help catch these snakes. They offered cash prizes, including $10,000 for the most catches. This event has become popular and happens every year. By 2024, more than 800 participants had removed 195 pythons. In 2025, they set a record with 294 catches. However, experts believe there are over 100,000 pythons in the wild, so these efforts only made a small dent, less than 0.3%. Despite this, the competition continued, and the issue got worse. To tackle the problem, Florida hired professional hunters through the South Florida Water Management District. Since 2017, these hunters have removed over 23,000 pythons, but this is still less than 5% of the total population. Recognizing that hunting alone isn't enough, Florida began exploring technology to find better ways to address the python problem. Thermal drones. They launched drones equipped with high-resolution thermal cameras, hoping to detect the snake's heat and guide ground teams to them. However, there was a big problem that no one had fully considered. The Everglades is hot. The ground, the water, and everything else are hot too. Pythons are cold-blooded reptiles, meaning they control their body temperature by absorbing heat from their surroundings. A resting python's temperature is nearly the same as the ground or water it rests on. To the thermal cameras above, a python looks just like a warm rock, a sun-heated log, or a patch of mud. Additionally, the thick canopy of trees and mangroves makes it nearly impossible to spot anything from the air. The drones did not work at all. Robot rabbits. Engineers created fake robotic rabbits that emitted heat and made sounds to attract pythons. They hoped this would help hunters catch the snakes. However, the plan did not work. Burmese pythons are ambush predators. They don't chase after prey. Instead, they stay still for long periods, sometimes days, waiting for real animals to come close. Pythons sense real movement and life around them. They showed no interest in the noisy, clumsy robots jumping around in the swamp. Judas snakes. One of the most promising ideas involves using what researchers call Judas snakes, or scout snakes. This approach is clever. Researchers capture a large male python and put a small radio transmitter under its skin. They then release the male back into the wild during breeding season. Driven by instinct, the male python is expected to lead researchers to large female pythons that are ready to breed and lay eggs. This method has worked to some extent. It has helped remove some of the biggest, most reproductive females, which are the snakes causing the most harm. However, the process is very slow, labor-intensive, and expensive. It is a small step in a battle that needs much larger progress. Are the pythons getting smarter? Things are getting strange in the Everglades. Hunters and biologists who work there every day, with years of experience, report unsettling behavior in the pythons. They notice the snakes act almost intelligently, as if they know what to avoid. The pythons seem to know where traps are set and steer clear of them. They also stay away from levees and roads where hunters usually patrol. Some of the Judas snakes lead researchers on odd, circular paths for months, as if they realize they are being followed and are deliberately wasting time. Could an apex predator, in a new environment with no threats, evolve a new kind of intelligence? It's a frightening thought, but more people are noticing this behavior. Technology is failing to keep up. Hunters are being outsmarted, leading to frustration among scientists and officials. Years of hard work, millions of dollars, and many failed attempts point to a harsh reality. The pythons have won. Scientists now say, full eradication is impossible. The best we can do is control the population. These large snakes have taken over one of America's most valuable ecosystems, and no amount of human effort can reclaim it. However, the real issue isn't the giant snakes everyone is hunting. It's something microscopic that nobody even realizes is there. Florida faces a serious problem with a parasite called Rhabdius orientalis, or snake lungworm, which came with the Burmese pythons. Researchers found this parasite while examining dead native snakes, such as garter snakes and pygmy rattlesnakes. They discovered the snake's lungs filled with tiny, wriggling worms. Unlike pythons, which have built up resistance to the lungworm, Florida's native snakes cannot fight it off. The worms block their airways, causing painful deaths as the snakes struggle to breathe and starve. Some snakes have shown severe infections, with signs of pneumonia and bleeding lungs. Lungworm has spread to at least 18 native snake species throughout Florida and is moving beyond the Everglades, with sightings as far north as Jacksonville. Researchers are especially concerned because the lungworm can now survive on its own in Florida's native snakes. Even if all Burmese pythons were removed, the lungworm would still survive and spread. The desperate gamble and nature's revenge. Florida is facing a significant problem with invasive pythons and a new parasite that is harming local wildlife. The state has become a laughingstock globally, and its ecosystem is in serious trouble. All traditional solutions have failed. In an unexpected move, Florida officials announced they would release hundreds more snakes into the wild to combat the python invasion. When people heard this news, it sounded like a joke. Reactions flooded in on social media, with many expressing disbelief. Doesn't Florida already have enough snakes? Fighting snakes with more snakes. What could go wrong? This is the most Florida man solution ever. Mockery spread quickly, as people compared this plan to other ecological disasters caused by well-intentioned but misguided actions. They referenced Australia's cane toads, which were brought in to control beetles, but instead became an invasive plague, harming local wildlife for decades. They also mentioned mongooses in Hawaii, which were introduced to eat rats, but instead attacked native birds, driving several species to extinction. To many observers, Florida's plan felt like a repeat of these mistakes, humans trying to fix nature, only to make things worse. Florida is releasing the eastern indigo snake, a native predator that will help restore balance in the ecosystem. Known as the Emperor of the Forest, this non-venomous snake can grow up to 9 feet long and is immune to North American pit viper venom. It preys on other snakes, making it the top predator on the forest floor. This release is part of a long-term effort to restore the ecosystem. Conservation groups have built breeding programs and improved habitats. In 2023, 2 wild-born hatchlings were spotted in North Florida, marking the first successful reproduction of eastern indigo snakes in 50 years. Interestingly, other native predators are also adapting to the invasive python problem. This careful scientific approach to conservation shows signs of hope. Though challenges remain, recent developments indicate a fragile but positive recovery in the Everglades ecosystem. If you found this discussion compelling, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into wildlife and conservation issues. Want to learn more about the struggles of native species in the Everglades? Click on our next video to explore specific success stories of resilience and recovery in the face of invasive species. Don't miss out. Your journey into the world of wildlife starts here.